Welcome to the Young Turks. Cenk, Uygur, and Kasparian with you guys. It's a big day in a couple of ways. One is we've got elections tonight, and they're gigantic ones. Cisneros versus Cuellar is the biggest battle left between progressives and the establishment Democrats, and no one has any idea who's going to win tonight. And if Cuellar wins, it's the most depressing thing you'll ever see. If Cisneros wins, there's hope. But there's also crazy elections on the Republican side. Herschel Walker, Brian Kemp, Mo Brooks. I'm secretly kind of rooting for Mo Brooks. It's in a primary. It doesn't matter who the monster on the right wing is. At least we'll get into it in the primary coverage. That's right after the Young Turks. You know Young Turks every day, 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern. Now the primary coverage is at 8 o'clock. And obviously, big news in today's show, including the shooting that just happened in Texas. So, Anna.
All right, let's do it. Details are still being reported. The story is still developing, but at Robb Elementary School in Uvalde, Texas, an 18-year-old gunman entered the campus and proceeded to shoot and kill 14 elementary school students and one teacher. Authorities have reported that the gunman is dead. As we share this story with you at this moment, it's unclear whether he took his own life or if the authorities shot him. But Texas Governor Greg Abbott, who has further loosened gun laws in his state, says that this is incomprehensible. In fact, here's the governor giving a press conference about this tragic shooting. Let's take a look.
The shooter was Salvador Romas, an 18-year-old male who resided in Uvalde. It's believed that he abandoned his vehicle and entered into the Robb Elementary School in Uvalde with a handgun, and he may have also had a rifle, but that is not yet confirmed according to my most recent report. He shot and killed horrifically, incomprehensibly, 14 students and killed a teacher. Mr. Romas, the shooter, he himself is deceased and is believed that responding officers killed him.
Now, we don't know what the motive is yet, but I do want to stay on the topic of Governor Abbott and his failed leadership in the state of Texas, because in 2021 alone, Abbott signed 2 laws allowing Texans 21 and older to carry handguns without licenses or gun training, okay? No licenses, no gun training. Gee, I wonder what could happen. Further, he also now allows certain 18 to 20-year-olds to carry handguns too. And of course, he says that the shooting is incomprehensible. How could this happen? Well, when guns are readily available, when you live in a country that intentionally ignores mental health issues, when you have a political party, a dominant political party in the country that's constantly preaching violence, that's constantly talking about civil war in the country. Wow, is it a surprise that we have mass shootings on a regular basis, including a mass shooting in an elementary school that, as of now, the numbers could get higher, has killed 14 elementary school students? Gee, I wonder, Cenk, I wonder how this could happen. How could this happen?
Incomprehensible, he says. Well, you loosen gun laws and gun regulation so that more people can commit more massacres. There, I comprehended it. It was so easy. It's your fault. That son of a bitch almost looks cheery reading that news. Did you see that? He's like, oh yeah, 14 kids are dead. And oh, did the check clear from the NRA? Did the check clear? Oh yes. And it's not just checks in this case. Let's be clear. Almost everything politicians do in America is because of money. We'll come back to that in a second. But the right wing enjoys the violence. They enjoy the gun culture, the violent culture. That's why 40% of them say now it's time for violence. That's the replacement theory is a violent theory where they say, okay, let's go kill the immigrants because they're gonna replace us good white people, etc. And now, by the way, latest poll out, after the Buffalo shooting, over 60% of Republicans say they believe in the white replacement theory.
What could go wrong, Cenk?
Incomprehensible.
Incomprehensible.
Yeah.
And look, we don't know what the motive is for the shooter. So I want to be clear, we're not connecting it to crazy, white replacement theory stuff. It could be confirmed later, we don't know. We don't know what the motive is, I want to be clear. However, you have a dangerous combination in this country where you have essentially like Guns everywhere. Anyone can get their hands on it. No requirements to have a license in the state of Texas. No requirements to be trained with a gun in the state of Texas, much like many other red states across the country. The Supreme Court, by the way, is poised to soon make a decision that could allow for open carry across the country. So let's sit around and wait for that bomb to drop. And you have a political party that like revels in, they're giddy about the possibility of a civil war or violence in the country. They intentionally vote down any legislation, either on a state level or a federal level, that would help with mental health treatment in this country. And I want you to keep that in mind as we go to this tweet from Marjorie Greene. Okay, because this is, it's almost as if like they have this game plan, it's a script, they follow the script after every mass shooting. Let's take a look at that tweet. Our nation needs to take a serious look at the state of mental health today.
Yeah, especially for you goddamn lunatic. You think it was the Jewish space lasers that killed those kids? It's your goddamn policies that killed them.
Exactly.
Mental health. You have a lunatic telling us about mental health. All right then, Marjorie Taylor Greene, what the hell did you do about it? Did you pass a law?
No, she voted against it.
Oh, you voted against it. Oh, how funny. Ha ha, other people's kids are dead. And yes, it is definitely the Republican Party's fault.
It is.
Now, I'm gonna get back to the Democratic Party because they are not at all blameless. But the Republican Party celebrates the massacre of our children because they say, no, my guns are more important. My guns, my guns. Now look, I can prove you easily that the problem isn't the cause of any particular shooter. Yes, the replacement theory is nuts. Yes, it's driving more violence. Yes, Trump constantly calling for a civil war. He literally called for civil war yesterday on his social media platform. Yes, all those things contribute mightily to the problem. But when you talk about gun control, it's so easy to understand. Okay, the cause isn't as important as the weapon in this case. Why? Now, if we said, hey, you know what? Forget just guns and machine guns and technically it's not a machine gun. Oh, I know gun control. I don't give a goddamn, okay? The kids are dead. So, okay, automatic weapons, semi-automatic weapons, assault rifles, on and on. They love them all. They're like, kill, 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 right? That's what Republicans are about. That's what the right wing's about. They're killing our kids. They're literally killing our kids.
Actual
and they
kids.
love it.
Actual kids that are actually, viable outside the womb.
Okay, I'm gonna get to that
kids,
too.
They have no problem.
So,
watching them die on school campuses on a regular basis, no problem. And the reason why I say no problem is because their actions prove it. Go ahead.
So, if you say, hey, we don't need any gun control, as all lunatic right-wingers say, you're all lunatics, okay? So, all right, then what about RPGs? Okay, no gun control, no arms control. It says right to bear arms in the Second Amendment. Should we give everybody an RPG, a shoulder-fired missile? So that, but you said, well, don't do that. There's crazy people. You remember that guy at work? Oh my God, that guy at the post office. That's a little crazy, right? If you can't walk around with shoulder-fired missiles, why not? We walk around with assault rifles that cut down 14 kids before anybody can respond. You love that if you're against gun control. You love that. Don't tell me you don't want RPGs. And by the way, if you're a Republican, secretly, right now in your head, you're thinking, boy, I'd love an RPG. Okay, well, then let's extend that argument further. Why don't we give everyone a small nuclear device? What, you don't want any control, right? Freedom, let's just nuke each other, right? And then go, which one's the cause? I wonder what's the cause. The cause is there's a lot of unstable people in the world. If you give them all of the weapons that we have, they will use it against us and our kids. Dumb. I'm so sick of it. I'm supposed to not call them stupid. They're murdering our kids with weapons that you allow them to have for no goddamn reason. Okay, dumb, what do you want them to have, nukes? You probably do. If you're a right winger, you're probably that stupid. Then you'd be like, just give them nukes. Who cares? Let them murder all of our kids at once. Because I don't want any gun control. I have a hobby I masturbate to called guns. And I don't care if it kills your kids. That's what you say. One of these days, a parent whose kids were murdered is going to snap. And then all of a sudden, you're gonna say, no, guns, I don't know about guns. You're going to create a civil war, you morons.
They want it. They can't even stop repeating how much they want it. They repeat it on a regular basis. I want to read you a tweet from Texas Governor Greg Abbott, dating back to October of 2015. This is what he wrote. I'm embarrassed Texas is #2 in the nation for gun purchases. Let's pick up the pace, Texans.
Hey, congratulations, Greg Abbott. You should be super proud today with blood all over your hands. Hey, we're #1 now. We killed the most children. Congratulations, Greg Abbott, and all of you monster Republicans. You're monsters. Now let's turn to the goddamn Democrats. What are you gonna do? I guarantee it, I'll predict it ahead of time, and then the New York Times and CNN and MSNBC will all lie to you and tell you, oh, they're geniuses, they're master legislators, they're the greatest people on earth. These goddamn Democrats that do nothing. Here's what they'll do. They'll send you a goddamn fundraising email, and then Pelosi and Biden and Schumer will be like, hey, give me money, right? And then you know what they'll do with your money? Not a goddamn thing.
They'll help right-wing Democrats get elected.
They'll say, oh, but there was nothing we could do. Then why'd you send a goddamn fundraising email? Okay? Why'd you care about your own power? Oh, elect me so I'll do nothing. Oh, the parliamentarian, the filibuster. What does Joe goddamn Manchin think? Joe Manchin is a right-winger. He thinks the deaths of these children is a great idea. He doesn't want gun control. You remember his first ad when he was running for Senate? He shot a bill of Obama's. What did he shoot, Obamacare? He's the one that, he loves the gun violence. And but Biden says, I'm not the president. I'm just a weakling, an impotent weakling. I just defer all of my power to Joe Manchin. And you think Biden doesn't want it? Biden loves that Manchin as president. He loves it because he doesn't want to do anything. Prove me wrong, Biden. You're not gonna prove me wrong like a little bitch. You're gonna lie down for Manchin and Sinema and Republicans. And you're gonna let our kids get massacred because he goes, there's nothing I can do. Donors, are you happy? Are you happy? I told you nothing would fundamentally change. Our kids are still getting massacred. Are you happy, donors? And they're getting a pat on the head. Good job, Joe. Good job. Go back to sleep. Prove me wrong. I guarantee you he won't. I guarantee you Pelosi, Schumer, and Biden will all lay down for the Republicans. They won't do a goddamn thing. It's hopeless out here, totally hopeless.
It is hopeless.
And if you're a right winger, don't ever call yourself pro-life. You goddamn liars. All of these kids are dead, and you don't want to do a thing about it. Mental health, my ass. You never once passed the mental health bill, let alone gun control. How many of our kids are gonna get murdered? And the news media, the goddamn news media, they will tell us we're crazy. Oh, you're so upset. What are you upset about? It's only 14 dead kids. Our anchors go out there like goddamn robots and they go, the 14 kids are murdered. And you know what, hell, the Democrats will probably help you. Oh yeah, well the Republicans are totally innocent. Totally innocent, don't say anything about the goddamn politicians. Why do you hate Anderson Cooper? I don't mean to pick on him. MSNBC anchors, Fox News anchors, all of you. Why don't you go kiss the ass of a politician today? If you work at the New York Times, you know what you're gonna do today? You're gonna kiss the ass of a politician. And you're gonna say, there's nothing they can do, there's nothing they can do, there's nothing they can do. These mean guys online are saying that politicians are supposed to actually pass laws and actually protect us. They're not gonna do it. They're all lying to you. And the New York Times and CNN will come and tell you, no, they're not lying. They're wonderful people. No, they're not. They're all goddamn liars. We're all in danger, all in grave danger. No one's gonna stop all of these massacres. No one's ever gonna stop them. And if you're sending your kids to school today or tomorrow, I don't know if they're gonna come home. And I'm positive no one's going to help you.
Yeah, you're right. And this is what freedom is, I guess. This is what liberty is. We tell our kids sweet little stories about freedom and liberty and how we're the greatest country in the world as their schools get shot up and as they get massacred by, I mean, in some cases, 18-year-olds who believe that they need to carry out these acts of violence to save the country. And then we get the same story over and over again from the right wing about how we need to focus on mental health care as they vote down any money that would go toward a decent mental health program in this country. Final thing I want to get to is Ken Paxton. And I want you to keep in mind that for the last year, all we have heard from the right wing in this country is that our educators are terrible because they refuse to go back to school in the middle of a pandemic when they feel unsafe, when students aren't showing up to classes because their parents feel unsafe in the middle of a pandemic. We've heard them defame teachers as groomers, as sexual predators. Keep all that context in mind as we hear what Attorney General from Texas, Ken Paxton, thinks we need to do in response to these mass shootings.
I know your team has dealt with this before. What were some of the solutions? And I know that Governor Abbott and Lieutenant Governor Patrick have also come up with task forces to harden these schools so they're not easy targets, easy prey for crazy people who go nuts with firearms. What can you tell us has been talked about in the past? What has been implemented and what hasn't been?
Yeah, sadly, this has happened again, and it's a horrible tragedy. But the types of things that we talked about, and I'll never forget it after the Santa Fe shooting, was having one point of entry, making it more difficult for people even to get in that point of entry, make sure that they and having potentially teachers and other administrators who have gone through training and who are armed, because first responders typically can't get there in time to prevent a shooting. It's just not possible unless you have a police officer on every campus, which for a lot of these schools is almost impossible. So I think you're going to have to do more at the school, because it typically involves very short periods of time, and you have to have people trained on campus to react.
Just want to remind you again that the right wing has been defaming teachers as groomers, and now they're talking about arming them, as they do in the aftermath of every school shooting. The other thing I want to note is there was a trained shooter at the supermarket where the Buffalo shooter gunned down African Americans. That security guard was an ex-cop, and he actually had a firearm, shot at the Buffalo shooter, and since he was wearing body armor, it did nothing. So it's not a solution. He knows it's not a solution. And I should note, when you hear all of that nonsense coming from a right-wing lawmaker, whether it's on a state level or federal level, understand they are openly placing priority for profits over people. Profits over people. Profits for gun manufacturers over people. That is what they're really saying to you. In fact, the National Rifle Association's annual meeting is set to be held in Houston starting on Friday. Former President Donald Trump, Greg Abbott, and Senator Ted Cruz are among those scheduled to address the gathering.
I hope they do. Are they going to cover the checks in blood? Because that would be more appropriate. And then Ted Cruz would probably love it. In fact, I'm going to end on Ted Cruz. Let's just note that Ken Paxton is saying, hey, I got a great idea. Why don't we teach the teachers how to shoot the right students? Because remember, a lot of times they're students. Maybe they'll shoot the wrong students, but who cares? As long as people are shooting and everybody's dying, Ken Paxton's super happy about it. Ted Cruz tweeted, Heidi and I are fervently lifting up in prayer the children and families in the horrific shooting in Texas. We're in close contact with local officials, but the precise details are still unfolding. Thank you to heroic law enforcement and first responders for acting so swiftly. You're lifting up in prayer, are you? No, I don't think so, Ted. I think you're lifting up your check and celebrating the massacre of those children because you don't give a goddamn about their lives. Don't tell us you're praying after you already profited off of these massacres. So Jordan Ewell, a TYT contributor, tweeted about his NRA donations. You know how much money Ted Cruz has made by helping gun manufacturers massacre your kids? $176,274. Average gun deaths in his state per year, $3,139. All of that blood all over Ted Cruz's hands. But hey, he got paid. He got paid. And by the way, you people, reporters in New York Times and CNN, those are not innocent campaign contributions. Perfectly normal, nothing to see here. Those are bribes. You don't give a politician money for the general good. You give a politician money to bribe them. But no, don't say it. It might offend the feelings of the powerful. You goddamn losers. If you're a reporter, you're not a reporter. If you're in mainstream media, you're in the marketing arm of corporate ruling. You don't even know it, you're pathetic. Why don't you actually try to challenge them? Instead, what they'll do is they'll yell at us. Oh, can you believe they lost their temper? It was only 14 kids, it wasn't our kids, who cares? Why would you lose your temper over that? Let's just be robots. No, here, one last rule, guys. Vote if you can do your homework. There's some good incumbents, but they are very, very rare. Go into your primaries, for God's sake. I know the media almost never talks about primaries because that's where incumbents could lose, and they love protecting the powerful. But go to your primaries and vote against every incumbent as a rule. If you find out, hey, you know what, there's one incumbent that isn't so bad, congratulations, you found 1 out of 100. But vote against all the incumbent sons of bitches because they have proven over and over again they are never going to help you.
Profits over people. That's what their priorities are. All right, we got to take a break. When we come back, we have a Supreme Court ruling that strips you of more of your rights. We'll give you the details on that and more when we come back.
All right, back on TYT, Cenk and Anna with you guys. Let's go forward.
Well, the Supreme Court is on a warpath to strip Americans of their rights. You think they were just going to stop with women? A new Supreme Court ruling limits the legal challenges defendants can make if they were represented by a terrible public defender. So this is something that is overwhelmingly going to impact people living in poverty who might be wrongfully convicted of a crime that they have not committed. And oftentimes, because they were given counsel or a public defender who was inadequate, they have an ability to challenge that post-conviction. But the Supreme Court is stripping Americans of that right. And I want to give you those details. By the way, let me just make sure that you're all fully aware that since 1973, 186 people have been freed from death row after they were proved to be innocent. Okay, so wrongful convictions happen. They happen quite often, and they overwhelmingly impact people living in poverty. Now, Shin v. Martinez Ramirez involved 2 men, David Martinez Ramirez and Barry Lee Jones, who are on death row in Arizona. The majority determined that inmates can't present new evidence in federal court to support a claim that their post-conviction attorney in state court was ineffective in violation of the 6th Amendment to the US Constitution, which affirms the right to the assistance of counsel in all criminal prosecutions. So what was the reasoning behind this? Well, Clarence Thomas wrote the majority conservative opinion here. A federal habeas court may not conduct an evidentiary hearing or otherwise consider evidence beyond the state court record based on ineffective assistance of state post-conviction counsel, Thomas wrote for the majority, adding that serial relitigation of final convictions undermines the finality that is essential to both the retributive, I'm sorry, I have a hard time saying that word, and deterrent functions of criminal law.
Yeah. So let me just summarize here. If you had ineffective counsel, and when I was a kid, by the way, I thought, well, it seems like an excuse to try to redo your case. Now that I'm a grown-up, I see that there's incompetence everywhere.
Yep.
So you tell me there isn't incompetent lawyers who, by the way, in their case, look, I don't mean to pick on them because they aren't getting paid much, but it's not the top lawyers in the world, okay, that are assigned these cases. And so some of them, unfortunately, not all of them, a lot of them have good hearts, etc., but some of them are not that good. And their lives are on the line. These defendants' lives are on the line. Look at the number Anna gave you, 186 people we were gonna kill, we were gonna murder them.
They're on death row.
We were going to kill them. So you could say slice their throat. We weren't gonna slice their throat, but we were gonna murder them in another way. And it turns out they were totally innocent, right? But now, even if you had a crappy lawyer and then you bring it to the federal appeals court, they go, no. Clarence Thomas and the monsters in the right wing said, we don't care if you're even right. By the way, you can't introduce new evidence. One of the loopholes they used to introduce new evidence is I had ineffective counsel who did not present this evidence, oftentimes because he was ineffective. He had exculpatory evidence, or he could have found exculpatory evidence, and he didn't. Okay, so then the court says, and this is unbelievable, but it's true. We don't care. We don't care if you're innocent. There are literally cases where the guy can prove he wasn't even in the state, and he says my lawyer didn't introduce the evidence that I wasn't in the state when the murder happened. Don't care. Go die. Go die. We don't care. We were selected to be barbaric, and we are being barbaric. You can all go. You don't have any rights. Freedom. That's a punchline we use to have the right wing oppress you. We don't actually believe in freedom. No, you will stay in jail, and we don't give a goddamn that you're innocent.
He says it undermines, Clarence Thomas did, it undermines the finality that is essential to both the retributive and deterrent functions of criminal law. Okay, how so? Like, I'd love to hear an elaboration on that, because somehow having the ability to provide evidence indicating that you're innocent does away with deterrence in our criminal justice system? What?
So he's, okay, let's take the best case scenario for him. He says, look, we think this guy did it. He's trying to bring in new evidence that he didn't do it, but come on, I don't want to bother listening to that. What am I, a judge? Oops, you are. So he said, but I don't want to hear that. If we kill him faster, that way we'll get retribution quicker, and it will be more of a deterrence to people if they see us killing people left and right without even checking twice. I would argue that that's not deterrence. It's more of a deterrence if you know for sure that they got the right guy.
Right.
If you think, hey, maybe they'll get the wrong guy and kill him instead of me, it might encourage you to do more crime.
And by the way, I mean, again, who is more likely, which population is the most likely to be accused of a crime and then assigned a public defender? Who?
Poor people.
Poor people. This country despises poor people. And the Federalist Society endorsed judges that sit in the Supreme Court right now are pro-corporate. The reason why they were nominated by Republican presidents is because they love corporate power and they hate the poor. And their rulings make that abundantly clear. Now, Justice Sonia Sotomayor wrote the dissenting opinion, and I want to read from it to give you a sense of what the liberal justices are saying. The Sixth Amendment guarantees criminal defendants the right to the effective assistance of counsel at trial. This court has recognized that right as a bedrock principle that constitutes the very foundation for our adversary system of criminal justice. Today, however, the court hamstrings the federal court's authority to safeguard that right. The court's decision will leave many people who were convicted in violation of the Sixth Amendment to face incarceration or even execution without any meaningful chance to vindicate their right to counsel. She warned also, noting that the ruling all but overrules two recent precedents, Martinez v. Ryan and Trevino v. Thaler. And expect more of that, as we're about to experience later in June with the reversal of Roe v. Wade. This Supreme Court has absolutely no interest in maintaining longstanding laws or precedent. They don't care. They were put there for a specific reason, and it's to crush you. And that is what they're carrying out as we speak.
So that's literal. I'm going to explain that. So last things here. First of all, Republicans pretend to be populists these days. Hilarious. Don't look at what they're saying, look at what they're doing. Every law they pass is tax cuts for the rich. And if you're poor and you didn't do it, who cares? Let's rip his freedom away. Oh, they're getting financed by people like private prison systems who make money by taking your freedom away and stuffing you into a prison. Who takes the most amount of checks from them? The Republican Party. They don't mind taking your freedom away, and if you're poor, God help you. You're voting for a Republican, you're the biggest schmuck there is. Look, at this point, I loathe the Democratic leadership. So I'm not telling you like, oh, Nancy Pelosi's gonna save you. She ain't gonna do nothing. She's an elitist too, okay? But the Republicans are nowhere near populist. They are now and have always been for the rich. Now, last thing is about the justices. Gorsuch and Kavanaugh literally had two cases where they said it's okay for a corporation to kill you. They're the only judges in the country, almost only judges in the country that have ever ruled that way. In the Gorsuch case, it was a trucker, and the corporation ordered the trucker to freeze to death, and the trucker had the temerity to not freeze to death. And Gorsuch said, was the only judge that looked at that case out of a ton of judges that as it went through the appeals system, that said, yeah, he should have died. If a corporation tells you to die, obey and die already, okay? He said, well, I mean, I'm not saying he should die. He should just get fired for not dying. And in the SeaWorld case that Kavanaugh said, yeah, if the killer whale eats you, that's your problem, okay? That's not the poor employer's problem just because he put you next to a killer whale. Corporations are allowed to kill you, and then the Republicans pretend to be populist. No, they're just servants of the rich and of corporate executives. That's reality.
All right, well, the FBI did something useful today. I want to share those details with you. There was a plot to assassinate former President George W. Bush. In fact, a man in Ohio who allegedly has ties to ISIS plotted to kill the former president by smuggling co-conspirators into the United States through the southern border. Yes, it's an insane story. Let's give you the details. Tom Winter reported that NBC News indicates that Shahab Ahmed Shahab of Columbus, Ohio, is in custody after the FBI says he wanted to smuggle 4 to 6 individuals from Iraq into the United States through the Mexican border to kill former President George Bush. Court documents and law enforcement officials say. But Bush was never in any real danger. I think it's important for you guys to understand that. There were informants involved, and the FBI was able to foil this plot. So the perpetrator here, Shahab, allegedly wanted to conduct the attack on Bush in the name of ISIS. At all times, court documents show that he was talking to FBI confidential informants and under some form of surveillance, meaning the physical threat to Bush was low. Now, what was the motive? Well, Shahab held Bush responsible for killing numerous Iraqis in 2003 and the invasion of Iraq, of course. The preemptive war that we also disagree with, but murdering people is not the right way to go, obviously. Shahab is an Iraqi national who had actually been in the United States for a short period of time. He was allowed into the country in 2020 and had an asylum application pending, according to the FBI search warrant application. The alleged plotter claimed to be part of a unit called Al-Rayed, meaning thunder, that was led by a former Iraqi pilot for Saddam Hussein, who had been based out of Qatar until his recent death. Also, the FBI court filing, according to the FBI court filing, the alleged plotter claimed to be a member of the resistance and had killed many Americans in Iraq between 2003 and 2006, packing vehicles with explosives and detonating them when US soldiers were near. Cenk.
Yeah, so look, the FBI is doing a pretty great job of foiling these plots. So credit where credit is due, unless there's something
unless it's a right-wing white shooter who opens fire in a black supermarket.
No, to be fair to the FBI, they have actually stopped a number of white supremacist plots. The plot to and right-wing plots, the plot to kill the governor of Michigan, and that was. But I say, look, let's get all the evidence in, because sometimes the FBI, whether it's a right-winger or it's a situation like this, does a sting operation a little too early where it feels like entrapment. But overall though, I think that they've been doing a great job in foiling plots. Do they get all of them? No, they don't get all of them. There was the crazy right-wingers who were gonna blow up a building in Kansas to kill, I forget if it was Somalis or some other immigrants that were in there. They stopped that plot. So they've stopped a great number of plots, and they deserve credit for that. And so, yes, of course, the Bush did kill hundreds of thousands of civilians in Iraq. He had the Freudian slip the other day where he basically kind of admitted that it was an awful, unnecessary, illegal invasion of Iraq. But no, we do not murder people. That's not what we do when we disagree with them politically. That's what the right wing does. Now, of course, in this case, this guy is, you might think, oh, the right wingers probably think, oh, Muslim terrorist, left wing. No, you know that Muslim terrorists are the right wing of the Muslim world. They're fundamentalists who are right wingers, and the left wing totally disagrees with them. They want secular countries and they don't want violence. The right wing always, in every country and in every culture, is the part of the political spectrum that wants more violence and more fundamentalism. So anyway, back to this guy. So and to politics here in America. A lot of the right wing says, oh, you see that? They were trying to sneak people across the border. that we had with Mexico, except they didn't. You all claimed it's so easy. They're just pouring in. There's all these terrorists pouring in. It turns out they had a plot to bring them in from the border, and we caught them easy.
Yeah.
We caught them. And I guarantee you Republicans will twist that to, we didn't catch them. But we did catch them, okay? And then finally, the most important part, the Republicans, we just told you, was it yesterday or a couple of days ago, are voting, yeah, it was yesterday. They're voting against a bill that would allow us to track domestic terrorists. So I guess they didn't want this guy caught. I guess they wanted their Republican president to be killed. By the way, these days they don't like Bush. Maybe they did, I don't know. But should we track domestic terrorists? Of course. Should we use that as an excuse to spy on innocent Americans like George W. Bush did? No, we shouldn't. This is not complicated. So I'm gonna talk slow. We should track people who have shown intent to do violence and criminal behavior. Once you have evidence of that, you should track them to make sure they do not carry that out. If people are innocent, do not track them based on their political ideology. I don't care if they're right wing. No, do not track them for being right wing. Do not track them based on their religion, Christian, Muslim, or otherwise. Wait for evidence that they're going to do a plot and then track them so they don't actually kill people. Not complicated.
All right, we're gonna take a break. When we come back, more political catfighting, more nonsense. We'll see you in a few minutes.
All right, it's a heavy day, guys. As we all live in the realization that we live in a war zone, and that no one's gonna come to help us. But let's stick together, let's do the best we can. Cenk, Anna, Cries Adams just joined. Thank you guys. Every member is part of us and not part of them. The goddamn insiders that are killing us all and crushing us all. All right, Anna.
Let's get to our next story.
Did y'all see what Stacey said this weekend? Said that Georgia's the worst place in the country to live. Hey, she ain't from here. Let her go back where she came from. She doesn't like it here.
That was Georgia Senate candidate David Perdue attacking his political opponent Stacey Abrams while campaigning. It's a little understandable why he'd want to attack her, considering the fact that he's trailing her to the tune of 30 points. But nonetheless, he decided to tell her to go back to where she came from, even though she was born in Wisconsin and has lived in Georgia since 1989. But let's hear more from his rant, and then we'll fill you in on what triggered him to have this meltdown.
When she told black farmers, you don't need to be on the farm, and she told black workers in hospitality and all this, you don't need to be, she is demeaning her own race when it comes to that. I am really over this.
I wonder what Stacey Abrams would be referring to if she's talking to black voters and telling them they don't need to be on the farm. I wonder what she could have been referring to, Cenk.
Oh, that's demeaning her race? I thought maybe the slavery that your ancestors did, David Perdue, was demeaning them. But no, now you want to write the history book, so that didn't happen. And instead you want to blame Stacey Abrams. Look, guys, let me break down what's happening in the Georgia race. Literally every Republican running in Georgia, whether they're in the governor's race or not, is running against Stacey Abrams. Why are they doing that? Isn't that curious? I mean, if you're running for a different position, whether it's Senate, governor, it's congressman, it doesn't matter. They're all running. Almost all of their ads are against Stacey Abrams. But wait a minute, why? And the reason is because they know they're in Republican primaries and Republican voters are racist. And they're super proud to be racist now, so that's why he says things like, why don't you go back to where you came from? In the old days, people wouldn't have said that because it was obviously racist and that would have gotten you in trouble. Now, it doesn't get you in trouble. It gets you more voters in the Republican Party, not less. And everybody knows that. And the more brazenly racist you are, the more votes you'll get.
Well, let me actually fill it in a little more because it's deeper than that. Because what triggered him was what Stacey Abrams had to say about the failures of the leadership in Georgia. So let's listen to what she had to say. This is the speech that triggered him. And there's a very specific reason why he didn't respond to the substance of what she had to say and immediately went to race or went to, the juvenile comeback of, why don't you go back to where you came from? Let's watch.
I am tired of hearing about being the best state in the country to do business when we are the worst state in the country to live. Now, somebody's gonna try to PolitiFact me on this, so let me contextualize. When you're number 48 for mental health, when you're number 1 for maternal mortality, when you have an incarceration rate that's on the rise and wages that are on the decline, then you're not the number 1 place to live in the United States, but we can get there.
So it wasn't an accident that David Perdue, who again is trailing to the tune of 30 points in his race, decided to just say, go back to where you came from instead of addressing what she listed there as very real problems that people living in Georgia, the electorate in Georgia, are experiencing. And it's not just Georgia. Obviously, the issues that she brought up in her speech are issues that American voters are facing across the country. But what do we get in regard to a response from lawmakers? But by the way, certainly Republican lawmakers, but also Democratic lawmakers. We get a deflection or an immediate attempt to deflect and distract with culture war narratives. Teachers are groomers, trans people are dangerous, look out for those Muslims, maybe we should reconsider gay marriage, whatever it is. Any culture war issue they can think of. Look at that, because they don't want to address what Stacey Abrams talked about in that speech. The fact that people's wages not only have been stagnant since the 1970s, the recent trend is our wages, adjusted for inflation, have gone down. Okay, mental health crisis in this country, drug addiction epidemic in this country. People are suffering. David Perdue and his right-wing cronies not only want to fail to do anything about it, they of course want to ignore it, but they want to empower the very corporate interests that lead to the pain and suffering that Americans are facing today as we speak. That's the reason why all he had to pull out of his pocket was, why don't you go back to where you came from? Ha ha ha. What are you doing for the voters in Georgia? Nothing. And that's why he's failing.
David Perdue is one of the guys who did insider trading in Congress. And of course voted for tax cuts for the rich. The only thing he's ever done is help the rich and help himself. So look, honestly, Stacey Abrams should have known better. And why do I say that? Her point was perfectly valid. She backed it up with facts. But you don't know the media in this country? They're not gonna do the whole sentence. They're gonna purposely take a certain portion and twist it for a good headline, and they're gonna smear you. Maybe she thought she was protected because she's a Democrat and mainstream media is mainly behind Democratic Party officials, right? Not behind the left wing. Mainstream media despises the left wing, but they love like Democratic politicians. So that's why she probably thought she's protected. But you think, but what about the right wing media? Of course, they're gonna tell everybody and they're gonna show only the part of the clip where you say it's bad to live in Georgia. And so, but you think the mainstream media doesn't do that?
It is bad to live in Georgia. You know who knows that? Voters in Georgia. It is bad to live in Georgia. Okay, let me ask the right winger something. By the way, earlier on, I think I misspoke and I said that he's running against Stacey Abrams. He's running against Brian Kemp. Sorry about that.
It's a Republican primary.
It's a Republican primary. My bad, I misspoke. Okay, getting that out of the way. Yeah, it is terrible. You think that people in Georgia, and by the way, across the country, don't see what's happening to their personal finances? You think they don't see all of these terrible things happening in the country on a regular basis? Of course they see it. But the other thing is, the right wing loves to attack anyone who wants to improve the country. Oh, they hate the country. Do you hate your kids? So do you not, discipline your kids? Don't you want to improve their education, improve who they are as people? You love your kids, right? So you want them to be the best they can be. So like this ideology of like, well, we don't know, we can't criticize the United States, we can't criticize our state, we can't criticize the country. No, this country is long overdue for a huge awakening regarding what we represent. Because we don't represent the best interests of our citizens, we don't represent the best interests of global citizens. All this country cares about is corporate profits. and how their stock portfolios are performing. That is it. That is it. And they'll distract you with culture war narratives as they're robbing you. And the people of Georgia know it. The people of Georgia know it.
Okay, now get a load of this irony. How dare you criticize the great state of Georgia and say that it's not doing great? That's why I support the guy who said, make America great again, and constantly crapped all over America and every institution that America had. Wait a minute, no one noticed that irony? Donald Trump, all he ever said was, America sucks, we're losing, we're a bunch of losers, everything is weak in America, America's terrible, 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 I'm the only one who can make it great. I'm the only one, otherwise America's terrible. And you loved it. Now she says, hey, can we make Georgia a little bit better by having higher wages? You're like, how dare you? Shut up, you hypocrites. You don't mean any of it. It's all rhetorical tricks. Okay, and the last part is the media failures. So look, I did an interview with David Duke, and I sarcastically told him, oh, sure you're not racist, David Duke, after I'd called him a racist, a bigot, and an anti-Semite. The New York Times only took the snippet where I said, sure you're not a racist. They took out the sarcasm from it and pretended that I was agreeing with David Duke's anti-Semitism. So the media, honestly, will twist anything. So the right wing that complains about mainstream media, you're not wrong about that part, okay? Beware of all media. And yeah, we're in the media. Beware of us too. Double check, do everything to make sure you're getting actual facts. Not, hey, I saw a rando on Facebook said this. Actual facts. Because the New York Times will definitely lie to you. Fox News will definitely lie to you. And in this case, they're all pretending that Stacey Abrams said something she didn't say. If you just watch 30 seconds.
I mean, who isn't embarrassed by this country? Are you guys offended by that? Like, do you guys look at the United States and feel proud? I don't care. Get offended, get triggered. This country is an embarrassment. Okay, never mind Georgia. This country, the United States of America, is an embarrassment. We represent death. That's what we do here. Death in our school systems, where we allow for all sorts of deranged lunatics to get their hands on whatever guns they want to massacre our kids. Okay, death in the form of toppling democratically elected governments on behalf of corporate interests in the United States. This country is about death. It prioritizes profits over people every time. I am embarrassed by the United States.
So I'm going to back up at what Anna said with facts. We're the only developed nation that does not have paid family leave. Once you have a kid, pro-life my ass, back into the mines, and you are to work at the lowest possible wage for every single minute of your life. No, you have kids, you do not get paid family leave. Every other developed nation thinks we're monsters for that. We're the only developed nation that doesn't have universal health care. If you don't have enough money, we just let you die. 45,000 people a year die because they don't have health insurance. And the New York Times and CNN celebrate it. They go, oh, how are you going to pay for it? The rich will not benefit from that. We'll strike it down. We'll root for the incumbent politicians and Democrats and corporate Republicans. And why don't they ever tell you? Why don't they ever tell you, hey, you know what? Our politicians are monsters who only represent the rich. And it's a very honest and obvious, I should say, reason why they do. Because they literally get bribed by the rich. That's our political system, where donors give millions of dollars. Sheldon Adelson gave Donald Trump over $100 million. You think that's not a bribe? His criminal charges went away. They moved to Jerusalem, our capital to Jerusalem like he wanted. Trump gave his wife a Presidential Medal of Freedom. He made sure to crush his unions. We literally allow bribery in America. We legalize bribery, yet the press can't tell. They're like, how did we wind up at the very bottom of every single ranking while by the way, being the richest nation on earth? How can we not have money for it? Because all of the money went to the top. And one of the things that the very rich in this country bought was media, so that they can give you an illusion of equality and freedom while taking every dollar out of your pocket and making sure that you get the bare minimum. We lead in gun violence and we lead in maternal death rate. We will let the babies and their mothers die so that healthcare companies can make more money.
That's right. we leave you with that super cheery note. We're going to take a brief break. When we come back, we'll talk about evangelicals covering up sex abuse within their churches. That's also as American as apple pie. We've got that and more coming right up.
Thanks for listening to the full episode of The Young Turks. Support our work, listen ad-free, access members-only bonus content, and more by subscribing to Apple Podcasts at apple.co/TYT. I'm your host, Cenk Uygur, and I'll see you soon.